Hello and welcome to Teenagers Untangled, the audio hug for parents going through the teenage years where no question is a bad question. I'm Rachel Richards, journalist, parenting coach, mother of 2 teenagers and 2 bonus daughters.
Hi there, I'm Susie Asley, mindfulness coach, mindful therapist and musician and mother of 3 teenagers. 2 of them are twins. Actually, that's not true anymore.
No.
My eldest turned 20.
Stop it, he did.
Yeah. So I can't say that anymore. So mother of 2 teenagers and a 20-year-old. There you go.
Very good. Very good. I asked Susie to watch the Netflix series Adolescence because I really want to unpack what's in it and give parents some pointers on episodes that will help you if you want more support. Because we've actually talked a lot about some of the issues that are covered.
Yeah, we have.
Over the years. And actually, if you're coming fresh to this podcast or you've only been listening recently, there are quite a few that you might have missed or that you won't be aware of. So,
yeah, it's true.
Briefly, Adolescence is a British TV miniseries that's recently come out, and it centres on a 13-year-old schoolboy named Jamie who was arrested for murder of a female classmate. It's not a whodunit, it's a whydunit. And each of its 4 episodes was shot in one continuous take, which is, made amazing. It's just amazing. But there are other things that we're going to talk about. So we're not going to talk about the actual filming or any of that stuff. Obviously,
it will break you, just warning.
Yeah.
I finished watching it yesterday. I binge watched it.
Did you watch it on your own or with your family?
I did. I watched it on my own. My kids want to watch it, but timing wise, I wanted to watch it for today. And we couldn't fit that in. So I watched it on my own and we want to watch it together. Yeah. It broke me. I finished watching it yesterday and floods of tears ran into both of them and hugged them, and they think I'm very weird.
That's so sweet.
It's harrowing. It's brilliant and it's harrowing.
I watched it with my younger daughter, and within the first 5 minutes I was sobbing. Yeah, and actually it was really good to watch it with her. We watched 3 back to back.
I did too, yeah.
And then we watched the next one the next day. And my daughter, who had sat her exams, when she'd finished, she said, right, I'm going to watch Adolescence. And I said, maybe choose something fun. Maybe not that. But she came home saying, yeah, I've watched all of them.
Yeah, you can't stop once you start.
Once you start, this is it, because it's so engaging. Yeah. So yes, if you haven't watched it, do. Yes. If you don't want to, then this might be...
Yeah. It may leave a dark cloud over your head for the following days.
So, right, let's talk something more cheery. How about some nuggets?
Yeah, I've got a cheery nugget. Well, cheerier nugget, because I just thought it would be a nice contrast. So I've heard this from other parents, and I think maybe it's particularly a boy thing, but maybe it's not. In my house it is. And it's washing.
I love
clothes washing.
Well, I think it's actually not just boys.
No, but putting stuff in the washing basket. No, I'm sure it's not, but
because they can't be bothered to hang it up.
No, that they need washing.
Okay.
And it goes into the washing basket when I don't think it's worthy of a wash, but they do, because they obviously don't wash stuff, so they don't realise what a pain in the butt that is. And so we've had conversations, but it needs washing, and look, it's got that on it. So I get them all out again and put half of them back in the cupboard. So we go backwards and forwards a little. And then one particular hoodie had a mark of some food that was spilt down it, but it was only one little mark. The rest was fine. So I said, right, I'm going to show you how to sponge a little mark out. And he's like, so we went into the kitchen with a sponge and some soap and whatever, and I showed him how to do it. Super easy, and he's going, well, it will smell. So then I made him sniff it, and we agreed it didn't smell anymore.
I love that.
And it went in the airing cupboard, which we are fortunate to have, and next day it's as good as new. And that was my lesson of the week.
I love that. And I have a simple test, and it's basically is it marked? Does it smell? If it's neither, it goes back in the wardrobe. And the marks, like you say, it's to clean it off. Yeah. And my husband has even started, because of course during winter he would wear a T-shirt underneath his shirt. He started just putting the shirts back on the hanger. Ooh. And I've shown, I've got a steamer. You can just steam the creases out. Amazing. If there are any creases. Amazing. Perfect. It really cuts down on the washing.
I think the next step is,
Susie, well done.
We switched up and I said, these ones I don't think need washing. And if you want those ones washed, then you're very welcome to do it.
You're welcome.
I don't think they need
the
washing.
Machine.
He's like, oh okay.
Absolutely brilliant. I love it. Mine's a happy one. And I've talked a bit about Priya Parker before, the woman who talks about gatherings. And I had been trying to switch up my socializing, because I realize I have not been meeting up with people as much as I used to. And I don't want to do big dinner parties. They're just arduous. There's too much work involved. My husband doesn't do enough, and it's no. And so I've started doing drinks, and the drinks are 6 till 8. So I've been very explicit with it. And I said, please do not bring anything. And what I do is I just put some little sneaky snack things out on little boards or bowls, just olives and maybe some meats and some cheese, anything like that. Really simple stuff. And then I just say, we're just going to get together. And then 8 o'clock, you're leaving.
I love that.
It works so well. And actually, one person said, this is my favourite way to socialise, because, you get older and you think, I don't want to be out all night. And I just want to go and have fun with my neighbours, go and chat with them. Yep. You can also circulate. The one thing I hate about dinner parties is you're stuck. And it's not that you don't, you may not want to sit next to that person all night. Sometimes not. But it's just that you think, I'd love to, I haven't had the chance to chat to them. Yeah. But what happened was we all circulated. Everybody just naturally chatted with different people. And I learned all sorts of things about what was going on, what people thought, and just loved it. So I'm going to be doing that a lot more.
I love that. That's brilliant. I'm going to borrow that. I have tried that in the past and said, I'm not tired. I really just want to see you guys.
Yes.
I'm not going to tidy up and I'm not going to feed you. So eat before you come. I will have a bag of crisps and some wine. Please come.
Yeah. And it's just perfect. And also you can keep it in one room. Yeah. So people were turning up and migrating to the kitchen. I was like, no, we're all sitting in this room. Yeah, yeah. And I put some lemons on this, some Sicilian lemons that had green leaves. I put them in the middle of the coffee table so that it looked a bit more pretty. Some candles, just perfect. Yeah. So that's my
bye at 8.
Bye at 8. And in fact, I was really helped by one of them. The lady stood up and said, right, everybody, 8 o'clock, off we go.
Fantastic.
I just could have kissed
They were all going
her.
down the pub together, weren't they?
They were all going down to the pub together. Most likely. No, actually, funny enough, all of them, because they've got teenagers, they were like, such and such is at home doing spaghetti bolognese, so I'd better get back in time to eat it. Yes. Wow. So the teenagers were being left, to prepare the supper. Oh, yeah, interesting.
Amazing. That didn't happen
in
my weekend. No. Mine was having a poker night in the kitchen and I was asked to go upstairs.
No way. I love it. Do you have any reviews?
I do. I really love your podcast and have recommended it at least 10 times to fellow parents. Wow. It's given me understanding, patient tools, calmness. I feel much better equipped and my relationship with my kids is just deepening. I also dread the teenage years much less, even though I'm already melancholic about them not needing me in the same way. Funnily, I have become an addict to the podcast, even though my kids are not even 11 yet. Wow. But e.g., everything to do with being connected helps at every stage. And I wish I would have had the same knowledge and calm when they were even smaller. So thank you for all that wonderful research and input. Oh gosh, thank you very much.
That is so wonderful. And I have been talking to quite a few parents who said, I'll need your podcast soon. And I go, actually, you might want to start now because I think the sooner we're prepared, the easier it is. Yeah. Not that it's ever easy, but and this one was from Tara. I listened to this morning on the way from school drop off to my client's house. And this was response to the it was the one I did with my daughters about skin care obsessions. And she said, I'll be listening with my tween again when she returns from camp. Understanding the why, thinking about wanting to fit in and also something they can control is very thought-provoking and eye-opening, something I hadn't considered. Love hearing your girls' perspective on things and the reminder to me to be non-judgmental. I'm so bad at it. Aren't we all?
Oh, that was a double whammy there, wasn't it? Yes. I'm so bad at being non-judgmental.
And then you're judging yourself. Reminders in this are always great. Thank you, as always. Oh, I love that. And that was
thank you so much.
Via Facebook.
That's lovely.
So let's go back to our topic for today. In The Guardian, which is a newspaper here, Lucy Mangan stated that Adolescence was the closest thing to TV perfection in decades. Wow. And there have been calls for the series to be screened in Parliament and schools to counter misogyny and violence against women and girls. So it's really interesting. Amazing. But the writers have gone on record saying they wanted to look in the eye of male rage and examine the influence of public figures such as Andrew Tate on boys. But I think that's just one aspect of it. I mean, it's obviously a main aspect of it, but there were so many things to unpack, didn't you think?
Yeah, totally. And I hadn't realised when I watched it that the father in the series is he the producer, the writer?
Yes. Yeah, I think he's one of the writers.
He's one of the writers.
It was also produced by Brad Pitt.
Yes. And it was the catalyst, I guess, or the inspiration behind it was murders in the in the news of women or teenagers by men in opposite ends of the country. Yes. And it just freaked him out so much that he realised that we needed to talk about it.
And to put it in context, we have a knife crime disaster here, because I've also sat through an Old Bailey case with my daughter. When I went there, I said, I want a murder case, because I didn't want a rape case. And it was 5 boys in the dock. One of them was 13. And it was the result of a murder by stabbing. And the boy who was 13 wasn't the person who wielded the knife. But the way the law works in the UK is if you are part of the group, you're also culpable.
Right.
So it was horrific, because his family was sitting behind us and this little boy kept looking up at his mum. And it was heartrending. So I think there's the knife crime side of it.
Yes.
And the availability of knives and the misogyny that leads to boys stabbing girls.
Yeah,
so I think there's a lot
of the
there.
two is just powerful and toxic.
Yeah. I thought one of the most revealing points was that Jamie, who was the boy who stabbed the girl, kept insisting I didn't do anything wrong.
Yes.
He didn't say I didn't do it.
Oh, interesting, yes.
So in his mind, he also, I'm not sure I'm going to get the words right, but he actually said there are a lot of other guys who would have touched her and I didn't.
Yes, he did say that.
Right?
That was later, wasn't it?
Yes. So in his mind, he's like, I didn't do anything. Just taking a girl's life.
Yeah, potentially. Or he could have just been panicking. Like, I think we all do that, don't we? Get caught red-handed. I didn't do it.
Yes. Yeah. But he didn't say I didn't do it. He said I didn't do anything wrong.
Do anything wrong. That's true, yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Anyway, so one of the things I thought was really stood out to me and actually hasn't been talked about a lot. And we'll go through lots of different things. But I thought the sister, so the sister was called Lisa and she was older than him. And there was this moment where the mother turned to the sister and she was trying to sort of talk to her about this boyfriend that she's clearly been seeing. And she was sort of like, how's it going with him? And the daughter held the phone to her chest and said, it's none of your business. And the mother just went, oh, okay. Or something like that. So she didn't pry, she didn't push on that. And I thought, gosh, that's so interesting, because I think all of these things, if you look at any series like this, they're put in for a reason. And I think what that was demonstrating was the extent to which that was normal for that family, that whatever the children were doing online was not their parents' business.
Yes. Yeah, and it's such a hard line to what's the expression? Is that such a hard space to navigate, isn't it? How much you ask and how much you respect privacy. That's
why I wanted to bring it up.
So difficult.
And I think this is what parents really struggle with. At what point do you say, well, that's your personal space and it's not my business to pry? At what age does that happen? I think this is stuff you really have to think about and to navigate once they've got a phone or they've got... And Jamie, when you open his door and you look inside, he's got all the equipment set up in his room. So he has got full access. His room is not a big room and it's quite a big unit that he's got there. That's dominating his life, but it's behind a closed door.
Yes, which became absolutely normal during COVID.
Absolutely normal during the COVID. And I think a lot of us who've got teenagers, not the people with tweens so much, because hopefully they weren't sitting behind closed, but it still happened. I mean, they're seeing kids in primary schools who've been affected by this. We were handing them.
They were doing their lessons. Some of them, the ones who had online lessons, not all schools did that, but they needed private space because everyone was in a different place. Oh, let's put it in your room if it wasn't already there.
Yeah. So I think we do have to, that's one of the things we actually really have to think about, is to what extent is our child's time spent online their own? I'm not a fan of sneaking. I'm not a fan of monitoring in the way that some parents do.
No.
Because I think that will create a disconnection. And I did say to my kids when they were younger that I can at any time check your phone. Yeah. And I did that to say to them, you need to be careful about what you're doing online. But it was more to do with having conversations about what they were seeing and doing. And so my girls are very open. If they get messages, I mean, my daughter, when she was really she'd only had her phone for a short while, and a boy sent her a picture of him, just his torso. Yeah. Wasn't rude or anything, but she went, oh, look at what he sent me. And I just said to her, so how does that make you feel? Why do you think he sent that picture? And so we've always had a real kind of, okay, what do we think about this?
Yeah.
And so if they see nasty messages or they see people saying things, it's more of a space to just say, so what, how do you navigate this? And what would I do in a one-to-one setting if you saw something like that, or people spoke like that in front of you?
Yeah, and also if you can show me anything. I mean, I won't be upset or angry. You can show me anything. Yeah. I was left afterwards feeling, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, feeling, oh my goodness, what have we done? What have I done? What have I not done? How can we go back in time and because I'm sure in the future we'll look back at this time where we just gave them free access, and go, what the heck? And I'm left going, yikes. I think my kids are okay with it. I don't think they have experienced anything awful, but I don't know that for sure, because to be honest, I don't know what they're looking at. I mean, I think I have a rough idea, but actually, if I'm brutally honest, I don't. And they are on those ridiculous things. And I have a son who gamed a lot. It frightened me, and it made me. There's not a lot I regret, but I've actually said this to my kids. If I could go back in time, one thing for parenting, I would be different around gadgets. I would 100%, and that doesn't feel very nice, actually.
And I think that's mirrored by parents across the world. Yeah. And I was quite careful with my older daughter, and I was very vigilant about what she was. I wouldn't let anything in people's rooms. Everything had to be downstairs, all that stuff. But then lockdown happened.
Yes, exactly.
And she actually said to me, have you noticed that you're more lax with my sister? Exactly. And actually I was really grateful that she said that to me. And she also regularly says to me, can you monitor my things? She's 18. She's still saying, could you? So, for example, yesterday, she said to me, Mummy, can you put another screen time?
Oh, for timing.
Yeah. Can you control how much time on this app coming? Because she knows that it's really, really difficult. But that also doesn't actually answer what she's seeing.
No, there's almost like there's two different things, isn't it? And obviously the more you're on it, the more likely you are to see something that's unhelpful or not great. But the amount of time you spend on it and what you're looking at can be quite separate things.
And that's the important thing. So when I did the screen time episode, what became really clear is it's not how much time you spend on these things, it's what you're doing while you're on them. And that's the tricky thing. So even with gaming, it's so interesting. I saw a conversation where people were saying, oh, well, there's a guideline on the games, the age that they're supposed to be using. You should be following that. And actually all the parents are going, well, and when I read the game, a book about raising a healthy gamer, he said, that's not the thing. It's what you need to be thinking about is how addictive is the thing that they're using, and who are they speaking to? Who are they accessing?
Yes, who are they accessing as well, yeah.
So it's not just, and he said you could be doing, stars and flowers and rainbows and things, and it could be really damaging them.
Yes.
So, but I think the main thing is we are having to navigate. So I put this in a blog. So if anybody wants to read my blog about what you should do before you actually give someone a phone, it's all in there. And it's really long because there was so much to talk about. But I think we have been presented with the most appallingly difficult parenting conundrum that's ever been known. I'm really sorry, but I just think that I've said this time and again. We are not being given instruction on how to do this. Nope. We're being judged and falling short.
Totally.
And we're in a bind because we want our kids to be social. We want our kids to have access to society. And yet we can't win either way.
No. And I actually remember during COVID going, why didn't you go and game? You'll catch up with your mates. Go and game. Yes, he's gaming. Oh my God.
Quite. I want to talk about another thing. So one of the other things that, again, may have gone a bit beneath the radar was the thing that happened before him going and stabbing, is it Katie?
Katie.
Was that she had shared nudes that had gone around the school. Yeah. So she shared them with one boy. He'd pass them around the school. Yeah. And it was as a result of this that it ended up in that particular situation.
Yes.
Right. So we'll unpack a bit of that. But the issue is there's a whole nude culture that a lot of parents are not aware of. And there was that brilliant book by Roxy and Gaye Longworth, When You Lose It. And I've recommended it before in the nudes episode, and it's worth reading. She's now quite active on social media, Roxy Longworth, and she's trying to get more sort of in that space to help parents and kids. And the pressure to start sending nudes happens very, very young. If your child has a device that has a camera on it, there's a chance that someone will access them and try and get them to send a nude. And they will not have the emotional, mental understanding of what the implications could be, which is why before you hand them with anything with a camera, you need to have that conversation. And with my kids, I was absolutely hardline. I'm hardline about very few things, but my hardline was no nudes, nothing ever. And if you get into a situation where you're completely in love with somebody and you think, I want to send something, it has to be completely unidentifiable so that you can stand back from it and say, that's not me.
Yes, that's good advice. Or print it out and hand it.
or just show them in the play.
Yes.
This is the weird thing. So we've gone down this rabbit hole of, it's so much better. Our kids are on our rooms, but they're going to experiment.
Yeah, of course.
So we're just putting them in a vulnerable position where this stuff is being uploaded onto the internet, and then you can't get it down.
Yeah, and then the problematic bit of the misogyny and that's almost allowing it or encouraging it. It just is a ticking bomb, isn't it?
Yes. And I was when my kids were in junior school, I remember someone coming into the school to say, we need to talk with the parents about nudes and the culture behind this.
Wow.
And that you need to understand that if your child demands a nude, like if you've got a boy and he asks for a nude, he's asking for what is considered to be pornography, child pornography, and he should never have any of this on his device, all of this stuff.
Massive
and there
trouble.
were some dads going, but it's normal, boys will be boys. So that's what they're trying to tackle. So it's got to come from all the adults around them, as well as being normalised in the community, that this is not acceptable.
It's not okay. Like a hard line is important there.
Yeah, and it has to be, and it's never one and done, is it? You can't say, don't do this. I mean, I regularly talk about it. And my daughter, when she went up to senior school, she said they came in and they talked about this. So I want to say that schools are trying to do things.
Yes.
So they had a talk about it, and she called me up and she said, Mummy, I looked around the room when they said this is considered, child pornography. And you could see by the people's faces how many of them had actually been sexting, like sending nudes and things.
And how awful for the kids. I mean, how awful for them, because they're just mucking about and it's fun and it's flirty and it's, we've talked about this before, haven't we? I'll show you yours, you show me mine behind the bike sheds, but it's a totally different ball game. That's the safe. Go do that.
Exactly.
Oh, there's probably CCTV camera up there.
I know. Oh, you're so right.
Yeah.
And actually, Jamie, when he was asked about her, he said, she's not my type. He's 13. He said, she's not my type. She's too flat. And that, to me, was very indicative of the porn.
Yes.
Access to porn. Yes. Because 13, come on, what are you expecting? Yes. And for him to be saying that she wasn't his type. And it's really interesting because I saw there's a website called everyone'sinvited.uk, which is the thing that started the Me Too movement. And on that, they say there are 1,600 primary schools across the UK who have said that there's a rape culture there. Yeah.
Gosh.
So we have to start early. We have to be regular. We have to talk about these things. But it's not new. So this is when I was at school, and I'm very old. So
She's not that old.
My parents tried to put me in the local school, senior school, when we moved to this Lincolnshire village. And I took a very brief look around it and said, I'm not going to that school. And my reasoning was, and my parents were really annoyed. They thought I was being uppity about it, but I didn't like the fact they had no uniform, that the kids were talking to the teachers with their first names, and it just felt unsafe to me. It didn't seem like there were enough rules, and I liked rules. Right. I didn't feel safe. And I I was told by several kids who were going to that school later on, one girl got pinned against a wall and a boy exposed her breast. There were boys bringing their penises out in class.
God.
And you just listen to this and you think, oh my goodness, this is not new. This happens in situations where we don't provide a moral and a controlled environment where you can socialise kids and say, we don't do this.
Yeah. And the consequences that the teachers can bring now are very diluted, aren't they? Because there's now a culture of, my dad's going to sue you, or the teachers, they cannot. There's very limited what they can do, and that creates this a culture in some places. Oh, I can do what I like.
And when you don't actually have steady values, where you say this is the value system that we're working from, then what do you fill the kids up with? So you need some kind of value system, and it needs to be at home and at school. So it's really interesting. When I study sociology, there's a primary socialization, which is what happens at home. We teach kids what the rules are and how the world works. And then there's secondary, and that's when you go to school and you're starting to look out and the schools are teaching you how to, and the community's teaching you. And somewhere along the lines, the values have gone away from the community and online. And we need to somehow bring them back into our communities and be much more definite about what our value systems are.
Yeah, because the online community shouts louder, doesn't it?
It does shout louder.
There's thousands of amazing teachers out there trying to do that job, and other community leaders. It's just the online world is louder and shinier.
Yeah, I think so. And yes, and the other thing I've really noticed is that some kids absorb the way you do things and what you say, your value systems and things, and then other kids need explicit explanations. And I've got those kids. I've got a child who needs to, she will not absorb it from just seeing it. I have to actually say, no, this is how I see things. This is what I believe to be of value. And this is how I think people should behave. Yeah. And without actually having those conversations with her, her ideas are formed by her friends.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. And they all are, aren't they? But it's on a spectrum of how much you can influence and how much you can go in and investigate what's actually going on in their minds. Yeah. But it's all very terrifying, and I think it can easily become overwhelming for parents. So we also need some reassurance in it, don't we?
No, but that's why we have an episode on pornography, how to talk to your kid about pornography, what's been going on, so that I want some absolute definite information that you can listen to and use, rather than saying, I don't know what to do.
Yikes, we've messed up here.
So all of these links will be in the podcast notes, all of these links. And it's never too late to have conversations with your kids and just say, oh, I feel like I dropped the ball on that. Yeah. Because you need to know that we're all struggling with this.
Yes, 100%.
It is not just one person.
It quickly becomes shameful, doesn't it? Quickly becomes panicky and like, oh my God, what have we done or not done? And we know that it's not very helpful, but it's hard to get out of. But having information is the way out.
And when I spoke to Andrew Hampton, who was a headmaster for 18 years, he said that this sort of masculinity, he said, really, we need to start talking to boys at the latest at 11. And I think a lot of schools try to tackle it maybe a bit later. The problem is some boys are still very, very innocent. Yes, and then other ones have been exposed to really quite unpleasant stuff. So how do you know where to put it? So in the schools, they're trying to find the sweet spot. Yeah. But we can start earlier talking about, what do you think makes a great man? Yes. What do you think makes a great woman?
And it's difficult, isn't it, when you've got maybe your male role models around you aren't great. Yeah. We've also talked about that, haven't we?
It's very uncomfortable.
It's just very difficult, isn't it? Because, the education space is very women dominated, depending on your school, obviously. But if you don't have a dad at home, for example, or you don't have a good uncle, you have to go out and find good male role models.
Yes. Yes,
it's complicated.
It's very complicated, and there's in terms of male role models, I thought what was so interesting was the father tried to get Jamie to be good at football. Yeah, do you remember? And his son just wasn't good at it. And when he looked to his dad for support, his dad was embarrassed and looked away. And then also the boxing and all this sort of stuff. And I think his dad was trying to connect with him and so this is what a man is, because he didn't have the vocabulary to just discuss this. But actually the boy, I think, was left feeling like he was much less of a man than he should be. Yes. And even when, at the end, when he was, the final episode, when he was when he was coming up for trial and he was going to change his plea, and he said, I've been going to the gym. And his sister said, oh, you're going to be I don't know what she said, something like a weight trainer, silly, bodybuilder. Yeah. And he said, no. Yeah. And I think there's so much wrapped into this bulking up and little skinny boys going, well, am I a man if I'm not?
I really felt for the dad in that, really, because I think that is so normal. I think often, the dad's obviously just thought, oh, I want to connect. He was obviously super loving and caring and adored his kids, like clearly. And he wanted to connect with him, and the kid didn't like football but was trying, and the dad was trying, and it was a mismatch, and it was probably very tiny little looks away, wasn't it? Like he was trying to be supportive, but he looked away at the wrong moment, and Jamie picked up on that.
Yes.
The nuances is tiny but really valuable.
And he kept looking for people to say they like him.
Yeah.
And even the psychologist. He kept saying, even at the end, he was saying, but do you like me?
Yes. Oh, it was heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. So this is a boy who's got a deep sense of being unloved.
Yeah, with really loving parents.
Exactly.
They were beautiful.
Yes. So we have to investigate. So where does that come from? Yeah. Where does our sense that we've talked about this and in terms of just the way our identity forms and how important this sense that we are loved unconditionally is. And that we can think we're showing our kids that, but we have to be really explicit.
Yes.
And it needs to be not something they did. It's just for who they are.
Yeah. And again and again.
Again and again.
Because maybe in the world
over and over.
They're not seeing that.
Yes.
It feels kind of superfluous sometimes, doesn't it? Like, if I tell my kids, like, I'm so proud of you, if it just pops out, I'm so proud of you, they'll go, why? What for? And I go, just because you're you. Yeah. And they go, oh, okay. Oh, thanks. But, they want a why. That's how our culture's built up on you to be, you need to be worthy of it somehow. You need to
no, that's a really good point. Yes.
Like, why are you proud of me? I haven't done it. Like they'll feed it back sometimes. I haven't done anything. Why are you proud of me right now? Like in this moment, just because you're you.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And that comes into the manosphere stuff, which we'll talk about in a minute, because it's about, what do women love about you? Yeah. How do you get this? And I thought it was really interesting because there was a great moment when the psychologist said to him, so is your dad loving? And he said, no, that's weird.
Yes.
But
he didn't really mean it, though, did he? Like, it's just the how behind it.
Yes, and it's that? Exactly, and the nuance of the word loving had been all mixed up in his brain. And he almost felt like, well, you mean, and the word nonce on the side of the van, which means being a paedophile. And maybe he associated that with his dad. They can't unpick these words.
No,
these words
the program was trying to make that link, wasn't it? Like, loving the male space, loving is like, oh, you must be a nonce.
Yes.
Yeah. Awful.
Which is really, really painful because I remember my ex saying his dad used to grab his hand when they were driving and just say, I love you. And just those beautiful things where you think, oh, that's so wonderful. Yeah. And I actually coach parents in inner city London. I had my favourite person was the trickiest one. And I remember her turning up, really giving me a hard time. And over time, I got to know her and I just loved her because I love those people. I love the people who are pushing back a bit. Yes. And she disappeared. And I think 1 or 2 sessions later, she came back and I said, where were you? I missed you. And she said that she had been to her nan's funeral, that's her grandmother, and that she suddenly realised that they were the weird ones. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she said, well, when I was growing up, I used to look at other families who would hold their children's hands and they'd hug, and I'd think, you're perverts.
Oh, golly.
And she said, I've realised that we're the weird ones. Like none of our family touch. So she went through this whole funeral, no one touched or hugged or anything. And she said, I'm trying to hug my kids, but it feels really, really weird. Yeah. So if you haven't grown up in an environment where that's normalised, then it becomes associated with something maybe not quite right.
Yeah. And
whereas
that's totally valid. And the online culture is spouting out this stream of stuff. It's really hard to ignore, even if you are in a different, even if your own culture is healthy.
Yes. And so coming on to this whole relationship with how you value yourself. So a lot of guys are getting a lot of pressure to body build. So that was mentioned in this. And the dad at one point said, I just went on YouTube to get some tips for, I think it was working out or something. And then suddenly there was all this weird stuff. Yeah. And, a lot of men have said there's a direct pipeline between self-improvement.
It's integrated completely, 100%, 100%. I have 2 boys, and one of my boys is a real questioner, and which I love. And he said, "Yeah, but there's good messages in it. Like, I don't see that. I don't see it's good. It's really good. It's motivating. What's wrong with that? Like, why is that a bad thing?" But of course, it leads into all the macho stuff. And then he could see that, but in his mind, it was separate, which I think was super interesting. And then my other one, he works out, and he actually said the other day, I saw him the other day, and he said. He does work out, and he lifts weights, and he's super strong. He'd flick me off the table, I'm sure. But actually, he does actually lift me up and go, "Look,
you're tiny.
You're tiny." But he said that he actually mentioned it. Just we weren't even talking about this program or anything. He said, in a few years ago, he would have been regarded as like super worked out and strong and fit. And he says, now I'm not at all. I'm like bottom end of normal. Or I don't know I can't remember what he said, but he's normal. And he was saying that all the people he knows, they're all talking about taking steroids and all of that in the kind of the bigorexia type thing. Yes. And he just recognized it and just thinks it's so weird, but they kind of almost have to jump on the bandwagon thing. We have an episode on it, don't we?
The bigorexia.
He is seeing it kind of unfolding in front of him and is quite aware of it.
Yeah.
And he works out because he wants to work out and he likes the feeling of it. But I'm sure...
Because it's a healthy thing. And you see your kids going and doing this and you think that's great. They're checking on their nutrition, they're working on and it's a social thing, often going to the gym. They like to do it together.
It's really... also a visual thing. And he admitted that, like the way you look it's important. And if you don't look like that, then it's, you're lesser than somehow. Yes. These are my words, not his, but that was definitely what was implied.
And my daughter's on a dating app and she showed me loads and loads of the guys. You just swipe through them. Yeah. And so many of them are basically bare torso, really... Yeah, and she doesn't like it. She just says, that looks weird. I don't like that.
I mean, there must be loads of women that go, yay, because although I was on a dating app many years ago now, and I'm obviously in a different category because I'm old and crusty and she's young and beautiful. And the men were holding up fish and
big fish
going, "Look what I caught for you."
But again, that's for men. So that is men talking to men. Other men will go, "Wow, that's a great fish." Other women are just going to go, "Okay."
Yeah, I don't want that swipe. Or in front of a nice car, or with their mothers sometimes.
No.
Yeah. No. With their mothers.
No.
I kid you not.
Swipe.
I think they were supposed to look like, I'm really in touch with my mum. Like, I'm really lovely. And I was just thinking.
I'm just thinking Bamboccioni.
I'm just thinking, you have not cut your umbilical cord. Swipe. Anyway, we're digressing. So funny though.
So I think that what happens is we've got a one on bigorexia. We've got I've interviewed Mike Nicholson about looks maxing. Got lots of things on this. Again, they'll all be in the notes. And it's really helpful to understand that, for example, Andrew Tate's only one of them. There are some way worse people online. But what they do is very clever because they have all these images that fit a 12-year-old boy's idea of what's really good and what's very masculine. Yes. Lots of pictures. And they'll mix in all of the inspirational stuff. They use quotes from really great, spiritual leaders with their horrible. And actually, a mother. This is a great tip. A mother on TikTok has said, so it's red pilling. It's kind of that's what we're talking about. It's people who take the red pill and they can see the truth. And this is incel culture. So incel culture is a belief that 80% of the women will only date 20% of the men, which means the rest of the men are on the shelf. And this boy, Jamie, feels like he's been taunted by a girl who ends up being stabbed, as if that sort of online bullying deserves, you deserve to be stabbed and have your life lost as a result. Anyway, she used it to bully him online, and this mother who was helping her son think again about red pill culture had heard her son say, "Oh yes, women only date men where they've got loads of money," and she said, "Really? So show me the women in our community like that. And he went, no, but I mean online. And she said, no, let's look around our community and you tell me which women are doing that. How many of the women behave like that? And she kept bringing him back offline to reality. And she said, I live in a really poor community. And so I said to my son, how do you think all these men ended up marrying these women?
Yes.
What do you think? They tied them up and forced them? She said, it's just patently not true. So you're being fed a line online that's actually not true. And
did that go in for him?
Yes. She said it was an absolute wake-up moment.
What
and
a brilliant thing to do.
This is the thing. So when we hear stuff, what we need to do is you don't say, well, that's ridiculous. You say, okay, well, let's look at reality.
Yes.
Let's look around us. So, and also with the girls, when they're talking about not being beautiful or whatever, you just say, well, let's walk around Morrison's today or one of the supermarkets and let's actually look at what real people look like.
That's a really simple, doable thing to counteract. I really like that. The everyday is all we have, isn't it, really? But well, it isn't because we've got the online world, but it's a brilliant counteraction.
Yes.
And also, I read and looked at stuff like how else do we counteract this? What can we do? And the presence of healthy male role models, ones who talk about their emotions, talk about their feelings. Although at the moment, if we kind of use the term social capital, like that the capital isn't really there at the moment, is it? That's not. But it could be. It could be. I mean, there is a world, isn't there, where it's okay to have feelings. It's almost like there's two worlds, aren't there? There's a world that's growing for men where we acknowledge and realize that suicide rates for men are awful and they need groups and they need to take care of themselves in a different way, and that's growing, which is beautiful and amazing. I keep seeing things locally, which is so heartening. And then there's the other world where it's going the other way. And I don't know how we can raise the healthy one, that men need to they need to talk about if they don't feel good enough. If they feel like they're one of the 20%, which is a horrible way to look at the world at all, agreed. But if they do feel that they're that, let's talk about it.
Okay. I've got 2 points about that were really interesting. So Mike Nicholson said what they found boys know that they can talk about things, and the problem is they've never, and they know where they can go to talk about things, but they've never seen a man they love and respect or admire doing that.
Oh, interesting.
So that was number one thing.
Yes. That really resonates actually, because somebody very close to me who is male has had some counselling, and I told my eldest about it, and his immediate response was, "Oh, are you allowed to tell me that? Is he okay telling me that?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." I just thought that was an interesting response.
Yes.
Not, that must be embarrassing for him.
Oh, yeah. And that's the other one.
Yeah.
So again, coming back to Andrew Hampton, who I learnt so much from, he said the thing that boys fear most is shame. And he said they won't talk about shame because it's shameful to feel shame. Yeah. So you end up in this really, really difficult zone where the one emotion that is acceptable is anger.
Yes.
So anger becomes your language unless you find other language that you can use to talk about it. And I just thought that was very, very interesting. And it's important to recognize that boys will and can feel shame, and that it can come out in these ways, like the dad, where he just loses it. And all the women around him are having to kind of manage this emotional outburst that he's feeling, which, by the way, is what Jamie did in that meeting with the psychologist, this extraordinary woman who managed to just hold her own in an incredibly emotionally fraught experience, stuck in a room on her own with this really angry boy. And well, he went through a range of emotions, didn't he?
He did.
It was almost like he was trying to find, like, how do I impact this setting? Yeah, what is the emotion I'm allowed to have here?
And also, how do I release this awful feeling inside? Because there's a difference between anger and rage. Like anger is when anger is a totally normal, healthy signal that, our boundaries have been crossed, or we have something is unfair. Rage is much bigger. It's like a volcano. And it's male rage that is the worrying one, and the one that they're talking about. And you see it, don't you? You see it in Jamie. It's rage.
Yes.
He's red.
Yes, and he's now lost control completely.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And the question is, who teaches our boys? how to channel, like, what is the language that they can use to express themselves. And because Niobe Way's done a lot of work on this, and again, there are other episodes where I've talked about this, and her point is that because she studied for, I think, 30 years boys in secondary schools, going from being really loving, this kind of junior school thing to not being allowed to really show your love and affection for another boy because that's just verboten.
Yes.
And it's how do we actually let boys talk about their
feelings? Yeah,
feelings?
that's interesting with the shame, isn't it? Because shame is a crippling, horrible feeling. We've all experienced that. Yes. And shame, a la Brené Brown, it dies when we share in a safe space. So I'm wondering, from what you've just said, whether boys, they, maybe they dip their toe into, I know I'm allowed to speak, I know it's important, something is bothering me, and they do it in the wrong space, or they do it in a space that's not ready to hear stuff like that, and then they get laughed at, and then the shame is almost doubled, isn't it? It's really important to diffuse shame. It has to be a safe space. It has to be a space where it's received well, and then it dissolves. But otherwise, or it doubles if you do it in the wrong space. And
that's where the adults become so important.
Yes.
So, again, people who are in this space, lots and lots of amazing men going into schools, giving boys a safe environment where they're not judged. And they can talk about the things that they're seeing, the pornography, the hate, all that stuff. They can actually unpack it. Yeah. And unless they're and the only thing we can do as parents is to provide a really judgment-free space where we don't shame them for things that they've seen or done. What we need to do is we need to say, oh, let's talk about that. How did that make you feel? What do you think? Be curious.
Yeah,
rather than just judgmental.
If we know about it.
And that's the problem.
That's the problem, isn't it? Because there can be a ton of stuff going on that feels so shameful for them, and they see their mates not sharing either. They just pack it away. So, it's all very well that we go, at home we'll have a safe space and we'll talk about it. But if you don't know what's happening.
And that's why this is so powerful. Yeah. Because what it's done is it's opened up, through art, they've opened up a space where we can actually look in and go, oh my goodness.
Yes. Yikes.
And like you said with the emojis, that's one of the things they illustrated really well, was these adults are all in this environment. They can see stuff going on, but they don't see any of it because they don't understand the language. Can't translate it.
My kids didn't know anything about that. I haven't asked my eldest actually, but my two there, I said, do you know about that? And they were like, no, what's that?
No. But I do have...
I'm sure it's rife. I'm sure it's absolutely
Yeah, no, I've got a great periodic table of emojis from Amit Kelly, who specialises in screen time device use. And he's created a digital charter that parents can use. So I'll put that in.
Amazing.
If you want the PDF with the information, then just sign up to my email and I'll send it out. Yeah. I think one other thing I just wanted to talk about was the women, the role of the women and the female assessor in that. And I thought it was so interesting because that was such a powerful scene.
She was incredible.
She was incredible. So number one, my daughter said, is she autistic? And I said, why would you say that? And she said, well, she doesn't have any expression. And I said, isn't that interesting that we're used to women smiling or trying to show, make people feel better? But there are a lot of men who will give you a deadpan face and nobody says anything.
No, they're being authoritative, aren't they?
They're just being authoritative. And that awful security guard, who was in her space, in her face. All of us women have experienced men like that, and they do it without other male company, so the other men don't see it happening. Some men do see it happening and don't step in. I have heard from my one of my bonus daughters that she's noticed guys are stepping in more, right, which is amazing.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. It's wonderful. So there is some light there. But I just thought what was really interesting was he had all these insecurities and she didn't reassure him. He kept saying, what, aren't you supposed to say?
She was very professional. She was very brilliant at her job because as a psychologist, you wouldn't do that.
But it also was him trying to say, but you're supposed to reassure me. You're supposed to. And he was used to people around him just brushing it off, going, no, but you are fine and we do like you.
Yeah.
And he's saying, but you're supposed to say this. And she didn't.
No. And that's the cleverness of it, isn't it? It's like, what is it like when you don't get that? How do you feel then?
Well, he's expecting the woman to give him this reassurance and she's not. Just before we go, I did want to mention an amazing thing I saw on Facebook where a local man he put a piece on Facebook saying, I just wondered if there are any dads around who want to do just a guy's experience with their son. Did you see that?
Yeah.
And he got an overwhelming response.
Yes.
So what he's offered up, he got all the response, and then he said, okay, here's what I'm going to offer. He's offered boxing training, hiking, staff carving using copper and leather, firecraft, butchering a deer and eating it. Like a whole day for free.
It's amazing.
So that men with their younger people can actually get together and do stuff. Now, some of that is really old-fashioned. This is what a man is. But my point is, I think this is absolutely the sorts of things that we in communities can be doing. And I think religious communities, whatever religion, actually used to offer a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, and they probably still do, but
they still
less
do.
People involved.
We've got scouts, guides, things like that. Those sorts of communities were supposed to provide those sorts of spaces. So yes, so what we need to do as parents and people in communities is just think, how can we step up and offer things where we give an opportunity for people to do stuff together and talk.
Yeah, I loved that. I saw that.
It amazing?
It was one of the things I was sort of referring to. I thought, wow. And also there was another one where it was for adults rather than for youth, but it could easily be for younger people too, like a space to come and talk.
Yes.
I mean, just absolutely. And so much response.
Yes. And there's a Men in Sheds as well. And the Men in Sheds which has been going for quite a long time, which is a place where men can come and do craft of some sort. Amazing. So whether they're carving or fixing furniture or whatever. I know quite a few women who say, I just forced my husband to go there because honestly, he needs to talk to some other people.
Yeah,
so a lot of men retreat into themselves because they don't know how to, they've never learnt the skills to communicate and socialise.
There's a group of men actually that meet on the corner of our park every Tuesday morning, and me and my daughter have noticed it. They're a bit older, they're obviously retired. And you see groups of women marching around all over the place, around where we live anyway, like they go on a hike.
Yes.
But it's men. And this men's group meets every Tuesday and they walk around and they're all nattering away. It's brilliant.
Yeah. And I just want to say it's not the women's responsibility. Like it's not our job to fix what's going on with men.
No.
We can talk about it and we can encourage things, but we also need to say to the guys, you know, you can do something. You can be an incredibly positive presence.
Absolutely
there are some
agreed.
Amazing things you can do. What are you going to do?
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Right, we've fixed the world now.
Have we?
No, we have done nothing but talk, as usual.
Waffling
feeding
on,
into the old
as my
trope.
teenagers
She
would say.
never shuts up.
Waffling on.
Anyway, if you found this useful, do please share it.
Yeah.
As I said, there are tons of links. There are lots of, if you go onto the website, you can find all the old episodes. So you can just search using the search engine, just search a keyword. It's not the best, but, you know, it's the best I can afford with my no money. And, just go through and see what's in there, because there's lots of resources. I've also written quite a few blog things, including stuff on the manosphere.
Brilliant.
If you want to message me, you can use the text button on the episode. I can't see you if you do that, so please don't ask me something that you want a response to. That's an email, which is teenagersuntangled@gmail.com. I do email back. I don't email back every PR person. I'm very sorry. I'm too busy. My website is www.teenagersuntangled.com. Susie, you do so much. So much.
Much.
Yes. How can people reach you?
You can find me on my website, which is www.amindful-life.co.uk.
What are you going to do when you don't have teenagers?
I'm going to listen to the Empty Nest episode.
Yes.
Is that
There
the
are
right
two
answer?
now. There are two now.
I know.
Anyway, that's it for now. Have a great week. Big hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.